I was just crying. I wasn't asking to talk to God. I wasn't asking to receive help or anything. I think I was just crying and feeling just so lost. And I heard this man's voice, and it was not a voice I'd ever heard.
Mm.
And the voice just said, "You deserve more than this."
Welcome to The Details with Allison Kahler, a space for real divorce stories and grounded conversations with experts, helping you find clarity and courage as you step into a future that may look different than you expected and better than you thought possible. My guest today is Nicole Marrè. Nicole is a women's empowerment coach, a Reiki master teacher, and the founder of Goddess Rewilding. Today, Nicole shares her divorce story and helps guide all of us on how we can rewild. Let's get into my conversation with Nicole. Welcome to The Details, Nicole.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
I am so excited to have you here. This is a bit of a reunion because we met 3 years ago at the ranch, which is a hiking and wellness retreat in Malibu, California, where you founded the ranch's energetic therapy program. And we did something called EFT tapping, which I'm sure we'll get into a little bit more later on. But I have so much gratitude for you because that practice is part of what led me to starting The Details. So this is a very, very full circle moment for me. And I'm so thrilled for the guests and listeners to be able to get to know you a little bit today.
Oh, thank you so much for saying all of that. And it really lights up my heart to know that I had any part in you beginning this podcast and this movement, because it's really powerful. And I love to hear years later what has happened after someone does a session with me, even just a single session. So thank you for sharing that.
Amazing. So let's actually start there with what is this energy therapy program that you helped found at the ranch and what brought you to that?
Okay. Well, it's quite the story because it does tie into my breakup with my ex-husband. So I'll go there if you're ready.
Let's dive right in.
Let's go. So I was trying to divorce my ex-husband, and he was saying that I couldn't and that he financially would make sure that was not possible for me, receiving threats and all the things that can sometimes happen in these situations. And I realized I had to make more of an income for myself because I was raising my son, who was quite young then still. And I was just trying to figure out what I could do. And I was already doing energy healing sessions online. I was already doing coaching, but I needed a solid, consistent income. So I ended up finding the ranch, funny enough, through my ex. I heard about it. And I pulled some strings and I got in first to be a hiking guide. But I knew that the company would benefit from all of my other gifts and trainings. So it took me 6 months, but I convinced the glorious and beautiful VP there to give me a chance. And they began to let me host these sessions for guests in this little hut at the end of the property.
Yeah.
They called it the Little Witch Temple. I started offering energy, subconscious healing, somatic healing in this space, and then it just really took off. Mm-hmm.
It was so powerful for me. I mean, as someone who had done cognitive behavioral therapy, a lot of talk therapy in the past, that moment with you unlocked something different in me that talk therapy couldn't. So can you share a little bit more about what led you to this work?
Yes. So EFT tapping specifically was something I learned later on, and it's because of my ex-husband. See, this is the perfect example.
I love it.
We can be in a relationship that's very toxic, but there's always gifts that come out of it, right? Because I probably wouldn't have gone to the school if I wasn't married to him. And what led to that was I started to think and behave in a way that I didn't recognize in myself in the marriage because I felt broken. And I knew that I needed to do things that were very challenging and very difficult. But my brain kept telling me I was going to die. Literally, I felt fight or flight constantly. And I was like, why am I so scared all the time? Something must not be right with my brain and my thoughts. Like, how can I fix this? And I was already meditating and doing yoga. And like I said, I was a Reiki master teacher already. And so I started to look into it. And when women go through a long-term abusive relationship, whether it's emotional or mental or psychological, the brain actually starts to change where the frontal lobe and the hippocampus starts to shrink, like your logical thinking starts to be diminished, and then
Wow.
you have way more energy and activation in your amygdala, which is your fight or flight, more of your primal thinking. And so just learning that, I realized I was living in my amygdala, which if
Mm.
it's imbalanced, it's like constant fight or flight, that feeling of always being in danger. And that's why I was not doing the things I needed to do to get myself out of that situation. So my ex-husband was also unwell in many ways mentally at that time. And so I decided to enroll in this hypnosis motivation institute in Los Angeles, and it's actually a hypnotherapy school. But when I found EFT tapping, I was like, whoa, this is my thing because it merges ancient traditional Chinese medicine with modern neuroscience. And so I learned to do hypnosis and all of that. But this to me felt like this is like the most efficient way to change somebody's mind,
Mm.
change someone's emotions, and to change somebody's beliefs in what's possible for them.
As you said, sometimes some of the hardest moments can bring us to where we're meant to be, and finding this healing work that you do and finding the ranch where maybe some of the blessings that came out of an otherwise challenging experience. But if you would be open to, can you share a little bit about your divorce story?
Yes, I am not going to go into every detail, but I will give sort of a broad overview. And I also want to point out every divorce is a two-way street, right? So I want to point out like where I went wrong first in
Mm.
this whole story. So I married somebody who I was deeply in love with, but I am a lover girl. That's like a term they use now. And when I fall in love, I fall in love. And I just wanted him to be so happy. And I'm a recovered people pleaser.
Mm-hmm.
And so over the years, I wasn't using my voice on what I was okay with and what I wasn't okay with. And I like to say I sort of created this monster because in my divorce, I found myself being highly controlled and also sort of, very blatantly put down. So if I had ideas, had opinions, had dreams, they were not honored. They were not seen as even possible. And it got worse over the years. And it was one of these stories where I was kind of blindsided, where I woke up one day and I was like, what is happening here? I am truly not feeling safe in this relationship. And we ended up having a baby, and it was not on purpose. And so that extended the whole journey as well. And my son is one of the greatest gifts to my life. And at the time, it felt almost like a death sentence too, because I felt like I couldn't leave the marriage. And this is how a lot of women feel, right? Like you have kids, and it seems impossible to raise them by yourself. And
Yeah.
I even was speaking to other women, and they would say, oh, it's too hard. You just have to stay. You just have to stay. And it escalated and got worse and worse and worse. And there was some infidelity, and there was financial control, and there was threats. And it just got to a place where I literally had to save my life.
Mm.
And you know this movie called Under the Tuscan Sun?
Yeah.
So that movie was a catalyst for me because I was watching it and I was actually on the phone with my best friend, and I used to call her at night all the time and just cry.
Yeah.
And the Diane Lane said, either I have to do something now or I will turn into an empty shell of myself.
Mm.
And that is exactly how I felt. I felt like a part of me was dying inside of this marriage. And that scared me a lot. It actually scared me more than what I thought might happen. in leaving. And so that one line, I was like, okay, if I'm already going to die in this marriage, maybe I should try to save my life and see what happens and just face it.
No, thank you so much for sharing. When you watched that movie, when you heard that line from Diane Lane, was it like a something shifted in that moment significantly, or was the change more gradual that led you to deciding to go through with the divorce?
There were, in a short period of time, I think when things had felt like this is getting so bad that I really need to save my life sort of feeling inside. That month, there was a lot of those moments where it was like lightning. And one of them was quite mystical, if I might share. So I was sitting in my bed late at night and crying like I would. And I was just crying. I wasn't asking to talk to God. I wasn't asking to receive help or anything. I think I was just crying and feeling just so lost. And I heard this man's voice, and it was not a voice I'd ever heard. And the voice just said, "You deserve more than this." And it was so bizarre because I was hearing that sentence from all of my girlfriends and even my family, but hearing it from a voice that truly was so loud and sort of shook me to the bones, hearing that and not like knowing that it was not a person, that was a moment where I was like, okay, I feel validated.
I'm curious, what did hearing that voice unlock for you?
Validation, like I said, because as is the case with so many women that are in marriages where they're constantly being put down, I began to really question my intuition. And I lost a lot of self-worth. And so my beliefs then were constantly questioned by me. And I would ask myself if I was crazy a lot, which a lot of women have that narrative. And so that's what that voice did for me. It was like, you're not crazy and you do deserve more. You are worthy. And hearing that voice, let's go back to tapping, had me commit to 12 months of daily tapping on my self-worth. And I did it every day, 360.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And was it a gradual shift, or can you point to a moment where in doing that practice, you started to really believe that, yes, I do deserve more than this?
It was actually right before I went for the job at the ranch. I think it was like 8 months of doing that. And then I can't remember a single moment that happened, but I started to feel more life coming into my body and feel like the world was big again. Like this is a massive, huge world and there's so much potential here. It was gradual for me. It was this sort of rising into myself.
And so was that became the start of sort of building some financial stability and security that made you feel comfortable leaving the relationship?
Yes. And after I began my position there, I started, because my energy changed. When I started to work there, every day I became more confident in myself and I started to remember who I was. And as I said, being a hiking guide was my first step there. And I grew up in the mountains. I grew up hiking. I actually started hiking as soon as I could walk, and I was alone in the mountains a lot. And as soon as I got on those trails, I also began to feel this inner child me come alive, and that empowered me so deeply. So it was like every day there, I started to become more confident, and then my energy began to become more magnetic, and I started attracting new clients like outside of the ranch.
Yeah.
Opportunities. And then I began hosting retreats again because I had stopped hosting retreats when I had my son. And I decided when I was there that I was going to launch that again. So it was just this, like I said, this rising of myself.
Wow. And you say now that the work that you do is really helping women to rewild. So tell us a little bit about what that means.
Rewilding women is my greatest passion. And what that means is that we as women in modern culture have been taught that femininity is one thing, but it's very constricting and
Mm.
we're put in a box. And of course, all of us grow up in different places and have different backgrounds. But I also was studying ancient Tantra, which is not what many people think it is. It's not just about sex. Tantra
I was
is
gonna say the thing that's in my mind is like Sting talking about tantric sex like
yeah, yeah,
20
yeah.
years ago or something.
Yeah. That is not even what I'm talking about. That might be
Yeah.
any piece of it. And of course, there's offshoots of every ideology, but
Yeah.
Tantra is a spiritual lineage and it's a belief system that all you really need to know is it's very empowering to women in its essence
Mm.
because it talks about how feminine energy has all of these different expressions. And some of those expressions might seem very masculine
Mm.
to women that haven't heard of this. For example, there's an energy in women that's called what I call the warrior-ess energy.
Mm.
And the warrior-ess is about taking action. It's about moving forward. It's about staying true to your values. And if you hear other ideologies about feminine and masculine energy, that sounds very masculine, but that's just not true. And so, what I found in myself is that there were a lot of different aspects and pieces of myself that I didn't know and I was not expressing, including this really powerful, confident, go getter me. I didn't feel like I had access to that. And so I
Mm.
began to study this and realized that I was so much more than I ever knew. And that so many women also needed to know this because so many women think that they're just one sort of flavor of feminine energy. So, rewilding is bringing women back into what I consider to be the true feminine essence that we all have. And by the way, I believe that we all have masculine and feminine in us, and this is not gender related, it's just
Mhm.
energetic related. So the other piece of this too is I rewild women to also heal their inner masculine. Because if we are always at war with the masculine, whether it's outside of us or within, we cannot be whole and we cannot feel like we have all of our power to use within.
We can use me as a bit of a case study to help other
Mhm.
people understand this better because as someone who spent 20 years working in corporate and in a pretty male dominated field, I think I brought a lot of masculine energy, which, yeah, so maybe help us understand the difference between this like warrior-esque, like confident, bold versus stepping into my masculine. Because I think I've heard people say that to me sometimes of like, oh, part of what led to the end of your marriage was, you know, kind of this imbalance in relationship and like not being, I don't know, the quote unquote typical wife, right? And if I was bringing home everything that was in my like corporate energy, in my masculine, like, so help maybe debunk the myth or help us like, because I think that's probably common for a lot of the listeners here.
You just brought the biggest misunderstanding.
Great.
And
Excellent. You can use me as the example of like what's wrong with it. And Nicole can explain it to us the right way.
yes, this is a massive misunderstanding. And it's very common because of what I said earlier. It's because we're told that if you are going to be a proper good wife, you're soft, you're more relaxed, you serve, you nurture, you give. Being a fiery, ferocious, warrior-esque goddess, that is not what people would normally say is feminine. However, so this is the difference. This is how I'm going to debunk this. So when you were in that role, and this is, you had a corporate job, right?
Yeah, I was a partner at a consulting firm.
Okay. So when you were in that role, you had to be really strong, really bold, really
Yeah.
fiery, really stable. And people saw that as masculine because they thought that is masculine energy. But what that really is your feminine warrioress
Mm.
energy. But she is forward all the time. And the different aspects of your feminine energy were not maybe coming forward in your personal life. Now, let's go back to tantric cosmology. So, this will explain it better. In the creation story of this lineage, it is thought that masculine energy is the structure of the universe. It's what holds the universe together. It's almost like a safety net or foundation. And feminine energy is the birthing stars, the Big Bang, the planets, life, creation birthing itself over and over and over again and ever expanding. So if you look at what we just talked about, you were in this job and you were actually in your feminine energy. You were embodying your warrior-ess energy. But if you were, did you burn out? Is that part of your story?
There's pieces of it. I think I would go through cycles where I
Mm-hmm.
would work, as
Mm-hmm.
you said, recovering people pleaser. But then I would get to this point of burnout and I would need to take like 2 weeks off to go to a place like the ranch or something else to like decompress. So it was cycles of burnout and then working hard again, cycles of burnout and working hard again. Yeah.
So the imbalance was, it's, no one's going to like hearing this. And sometimes I get flack for this. It's toxic femininity,
Mm.
burnout. Why? It's not our fault. It's because where's the safe structure? Where's the safety? Where's the foundation to hold you steady and balance you? So I know that sounds really complicated, but that's also why this issue in our society right now that we're having between men and women, it's almost like we're at war with each other. The men have also not been taught what true masculine energy is. So I can't say what happened in your personal life at home, but you should be able to show up and embody that warrior-ess woman at work and then go home and soften if you need to, or be whatever version you desire to be. That could be more of a creative expression of yourself. That could be a you that is more like dreamy and ethereal. But your ex-husband would need to know how to also hold that. And this is also why saying a woman should do all the domestic chores and take care of a home and have everything put together at home and have a career is wrong, because we're not meant to just always be in warrior-ess mode. We're meant to be in balance with all of our feminine expressions. And what I also teach women is that you have masculine energy within yourself. So I've had to teach myself this too, even recently. We have to be able to have boundaries with ourselves because we have so much life force and so much fire, and we want to take action on so many things. But we have to be able to hold a strong structure so that we don't burn out. It's up to us to not burn out, but also the outer world loves to burn us out.
Yeah.
So that's where boundaries come in. Did that make sense to
It
you?
does. And I think what comes up for me through this is I was very young when I got married and divorced. And I think there was so much of that I didn't have the self awareness to know, this is who I am and this is what I need to be able to communicate those boundaries. I think I had grown up in so much reaction to what the external world or bosses, parents, school teachers, et cetera, expected, and operating in reaction to those expectations rather than this is who I am, this is what I want, this is what I need. So I don't even think I was able to communicate what I did need when I came back. And so it was just, I think I'll own this piece is like a lot of it was like reactivity from my end and being like, this isn't working, but not necessarily being able to have the language to be able to speak to that. Right. And so I actually like the language that you're offering here, I think is really clarifying and helpful because, as you said, I think there's a lot of misconceptions around what femininity, masculinity means.
Yes. And we have all of these dynamics within ourselves. And so every couple really needs to discover, whether it's man and woman, man and man, or whatever, like they need to discover what the balance is going to be. And I also, in my own divorce, like really will say that my part was I didn't know any of this either when I got married. And so I was the person that was like working, taking care of the kid, doing every single domestic chore, doing all the laundry, everything, grocery shopping, all of that. But it almost felt like I wasn't supposed to ask for any help because a man isn't supposed to help me. And so I relate to what you're saying. Like, that's why I'm educating women. Like, rewilding women is so much about re-educating
Yeah.
and learning how to communicate these things because it's not all men's fault. And a lot of them do want to learn,
Yeah.
but we have to learn how to tell them in a way that they understand as well.
Yeah. So you work with women who are navigating divorce, and that might be contemplating it or navigating it their side. If we start with the women who are contemplating divorce, what does it mean to rewild and maybe figure out what the right answer is for them through that contemplation process as they're doing this rewilding work?
Such a good question. So, first of all, the women that come to me that are contemplating divorce and are choosing to rewild are very brave, very brave. Because rewilding in relationship is next level. Because if you are a woman that has been contained and suppressed and repressed throughout her life, and then you rewild in relationship, that relationship literally has to rebirth. It has to. Because if one person's rebirthing, the relationship rebirths. And so what that often looks like is, well, to make it really simple, is I tell her, the woman that I'm working with, my job is for you to become the most empowered version of you and the you that you love being. What results from that, I can't control, but you have to surrender to whatever that might be, whatever the possibility might be. And so I have seen circumstances where she begins to become more alive and the husband actually responds really positively and even begins to support her more because coming more alive as a woman means also using your voice more, knowing what you want more. So I've seen that really positive outcome. And then also I have seen it where the man responds very negatively and doesn't want change and doesn't want her. It's not that he doesn't want her to necessarily feel better. It's that he doesn't want to take on the role that she needs when she's her most empowered self.
What does it actually look like to rewild? Like, how do you actually do this work?
So this is a multi-method system. And I have been trained in so many different methods of healing, whether it's very pragmatic in modern science or really ancient. And so some of the work that we do is inner child healing and really starting out with women being sure that they know who they are. And another piece that's really important is I coach women on knowing what their top values are in life. Because if we don't know what our top values are in life, then we get lost. We forget that we care about things and then we become resentful. So that's another piece. Also, women store a lot of energy in their bodies often because we have been taught in many ways to suppress our big feelings. And we're also not given tools on how to work with our anger. And guess what? All human beings experience anger. So I am like an expert in healthy processing of rage because I had to learn. We go through healthy supportive rage practices, learning emotional intelligence, and I also do somatic therapy with them, which somatic therapy is just the therapy of using the body to release emotions and trapped trauma and fears and things like that. And then we'll do tapping, we'll do mental rewiring and really fun work too. Like I do manifestation in rewilding as well.
All right, take us back to the healthy rage expression because I think people are like, how do I do that? Sign me up.
So my divorce brought out the fiery lava of rage within. Like I have never been so angry in my entire life. I didn't know I could feel that much anger. And it was so hard because I was a stay-at-home mom and also had to work and try to make money. So I was like, how can I do this? And luckily, I was working with a mentor at the time. Her name's Allison Kahler, and she gave me some ideas about how to process my rage. And then I just like kept going with it. And so one of the things that I did is I was really into shamanic music at that time, which is like nature music and drums. So I bought a drum and luckily my son sleeps like he's in a coma. He just sleeps so deep. I would at night after I put him to bed, get my drum and wail on my drum and feel all of the rage coming out. And I would sing, and sometimes they were just like profanities, like just saying everything I wanted to say that I wasn't able to say. in my day-to-day life. And then another part is it's so simple, it's so primal. Screaming in pillows.
Yeah.
Screaming in pillows is so healthy for you. Or screaming in your car. Just screaming is incredible. It alchemizes that energy. And
Yeah.
then there's also more cerebral practices like writing letters of words that you've always wanted to say to someone or to many people, and then burning the letters. Those are just 3 rituals, but I have so many more, and I really tailor them to the woman that I'm working with.
So if there is a woman who's now on the coming out of a divorce and might be thinking about stepping back into the dating world, hypothetically speaking, how do you help them get in touch with, the woman that she wants to be as she is re-entering partnership and tapping into these different elements of femininity?
Oh, this is so much fun. And also, this could be another hour long conversation. But to make it simple, once again, she needs to fall in love with herself and fall in love with being alive.
Mm.
And we go about that in many different ways. What I love to do is, have you ever heard of identity work before?
Maybe, but if so, maybe not by that name. So tell us.
Okay. So when we go through a rebirth and we are reinventing ourselves, it's so important and it's so fun to have a vision or even a muse of ourselves that we want to be in this new chapter. And it's surprising because a lot of us don't do this on purpose, like intentionally. We just like, okay, I'm in a new chapter, I'm going to change, and we just let it happen organically. But you don't have to do that. You can become a vastly different version of you if you choose to. So some of the foundational work that we do is she needs to come up with the best identity of herself that she wants to be. And then all of our practices will go towards that in supporting her and becoming that person. And so I've worked with women who would never wear lipstick. And they're like, okay, this new version of me is going to wear red lipstick. And I'm like, well, you're going to start wearing it tomorrow. And they're like, no, I'm too scared to do that. And then they come back to me and they say, wearing red lipstick changed my life. Everyone treated me differently. So it's fun and lively and playful, but then we also do really deep work to make sure that if they just came out of a marriage, that they're not bringing any of that into this new era. And so we do a lot of clearing work, whether that means through energy work or even hypnosis or tapping or somatic therapy. So those are some of the things that we do.
If you could go back to the version of yourself years ago when you were kind of in those early days of questioning your own marriage and the future of that and your divorce, what would you tell her now with all of this extra wisdom that you have accumulated over the years?
I would tell her to be unrealistic. Like, don't be realistic about what's possible for you because you truly can make any of those dreams happen. That's what I would tell her. And if anyone tells you to be logical and that you're crazy, you're not. And as illogical as you choose to be about what's possible for you is how far you can go on that road. I think about that sometimes because I really have done so many of the things that I thought were impossible at that time.
Wow. What an inspirational note to close on today. Nicole, if people are interested in working with you, where can they find you?
I'm on Instagram and I'm very active there. And it's Nicole_Rewild. And then you can also find me on my website, but I am in the middle of a website revamp. It's going to be NicoleMarrè.com, but right now it's NikkiMarrè.com, and it's NIKIMARRE.com.
I know I've had to get to know you under this new name, Nicole, because when I met you, you were Nikki, but you are such a light. I am so glad that I met you 3 years ago. I'm so blessed and grateful to have you in my life now. Thank you so much for sharing all of your wisdom with our listeners today.
Thank you so much for having this platform and supporting so many women out there. It's been such a pleasure.
Thanks for listening to my conversation with Nicole. The EFT tapping that we did is a big reason why this podcast exists. So I am so grateful for her impact on my life and for her coming on the show today. For more conversations like these, be sure to follow or subscribe to The Details wherever you get your podcast. and we'll see you next week.